a lot of, luxury properties out there. There's a lot of high net worth individuals that are buying here. So if you can, get your hands on it, it obviously can be life changing, which it has been to me.
David Hutchinson, Dubai's #1 Australian real estate agent. Welcome to the Rebel Agent podcast.
Thank you very much, David, for having me. I understand that I am the fourth real estate broker from House to be on the Rebel Agent podcast. You've had the top of the tree, the Luke Remingtons, the Stephen Leckies, the Paul Sharlins, and now you're scraping the bottom of the barrel and bringing me on. So I appreciate it and happy to be here.
I think as the podcast goes on, we'll realise that that's not the case. You've achieved so much. Now, a big fan of House and what they've done. So hopefully get more staff on. It'd be good to get a little bit about your background first, and then we'll get into why you've been so successful with your real estate career so far.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm 35, and I got.
You don't look that.
Oh, well, thank you. So it's nice to hear. But I got into real estate. I'm sorry, I should preface it. I'm from Australia, Melbourne, Australia originally, and I didn't want to go to university out of high school. So when I was fresh out of high school, I went straight into real estate as a like a door knocker, cold caller, trying to find people that wanted to, list their property and sell it. And I tried that for about 8 months and it didn't sort of go so well. So then I actually moved into more project marketing, like project real estate sales, where I suppose the benefit is, you don't have to go prospect for listings, because if you have 1,000 blocks on a land subdivision or 300 apartments in the project, you've got the stock there to sell. Sure. And, the buyers come to you. So I was always interested in, more so the off-plan side of real estate. And I essentially did that in Australia for the better part of 14 years. And, it was doing pretty well in Australia. At least on paper, I was earning pretty good money. I had 6 investment properties, and
very good.
Then
at that age, because what were you then? Late 20s, early 30s?
Yeah, so I bought my first house when I was 20. Wow. And, sort of just managed to acquire a few more along the way, and, everything was going well. And then, COVID hit, mm-hmm. and, Melbourne was pretty harsh on the old lockdowns and gave me a lot of time to think about my situation. And I sort of looked at it on paper and I thought, I'm doing pretty well. I've got 6 investment properties. I'm earning good salary, all that type of thing. But, the interest rate started to rise, the equity started to dissipate, and I looked at how much I was paying in tax, and I kind of thought, well, all right, maybe I'll sell a few properties. And then you've got capital gains tax, you've got agents' commissions. And so, this big pile of equity that I thought I was sitting on was just getting less and less. So I sort of looked at my situation and thought, what, I'm not really where I want to be at all. So, is there an alternative where I can go do, real estate elsewhere and perhaps, either earn more money, pay less tax, or, and also I was a bit over the way, Victoria, my state in Australia, handled the lockdowns as well. So that made me look for greener pastures, I suppose.
And Dubai was the answer.
Well, I guess not so much greener in the sense there's a lot of greenery. I suppose it's more the desert pastures, but yeah, it wasn't on the radar in actual fact. I was more like looking towards America, but then I actually went on a date from Tinder with a girl in Australia, and she just happened to work for Emirates. And, I'd gotten to the date on time, but she was running late, as a lot of women do. And I was considering leaving. I thought, she's only in town for one night. She's a flight attendant, what's the point, that type of thing. And she messaged me and said, I'm going to be there in about 10 minutes. I said, all right, no worries. And sure enough, she got there, and, over dinner, she was telling me all about Dubai, which I'd never really knew anything about other than a few clips of, Lamborghini taxis and, just the Burj Al Arab and that sort of stuff. And, she was telling me how busy the real estate market is. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah, and there's no tax here. And, if you've got a previous experience, you'll get a job there really easily. And I'm like, this is starting to sound pretty good. So from that conversation, I started looking into Dubai, and, within a few months, I'd made the decision to come over and was fortunate enough to get a job or be hired when I was still in Australia, and away I went.
Fantastic. And how did the date go?
The date went well. We did keep in contact, and
Great.
she did help me in my move to Dubai as well. It's not still current. Dating a flight attendant, there can be some turbulence, shall I say?
Yeah, maybe for another podcast. That one.
Yes, indeed. But no, she's a fantastic girl, and very, very fortunate to have met her, and large part of the reason why I'm here.
Brilliant. No, that's a great story. And then we were chatting earlier, weren't we? And you had interviews with House and House, but before that, Allsop and Allsop. And they were obviously online interviews, as a lot of people do. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I was still in Australia, and I wanted to get a job in place before moving. And I'd never been to Dubai before, but I thought if I'm going to do it, it'd be nice to have some security in place, rather than got to go there on a holiday, try and, snoop around for a job and that type of thing. So, yeah, the first interview I had was with Allsop and Allsop, and that was with a recruitment consultant, and went really well, and was feeling confident about it. And their process was to have a follow-up interview with the senior recruitment consultant. And in between that time, I started getting a bit antsy because I'm like, oh, what if they don't hire me? Like, I'm not talking to anyone else. I've got all my eggs in one basket. So, yeah, I sent through my resume to House and House and had an interview with the recruitment manager at the time. And, she arranged for me to have a follow-up interview with the managing director of Offplan, which is where I wanted to be naturally. And it coincided that I was having my interview with the managing director of Offplan, Simon Baker, earlier in the day, the same day of when the second interview with Allsop and Allsop was going to happen.
All right.
And, the interview was with Simon Baker. And it was one of the easiest interviews I've ever had because Simon did all the talking. I didn't have to say too much.
He likes to chat.
And
it'd be great to get him on here, actually.
He would be fantastic on here. He's awesome. And I sort of told him the situation. I said, look, I've got a second interview with Allsop and Allsop. I'm pretty keen to get this going. I think they're going to offer me something. And he said, well, all right, I'll tell you what. Once we get off this, I'll get our department to send you a letter of offer as well. Do the second interview with Allsop and Allsop, and then you can decide. I thought, all right, that sounds pretty good. And sure enough, an hour later, the letter of offer came through. I did the second interview with Allsop and Allsop. They sent me a letter of offer. And then, for the next few days, it was quite stressful because, on the surface, both seemed like really good agencies. And it was sort of hard to make a decision. But in the end, I thought the fact that Simon, one of the MDs, took time out of his day to have an interview with me so quickly, and the fact that I just thought he was a great guy on the interview and I could really see myself working for him. That was the clincher. It was really just that in the end.
Yeah. So remind me, was it 2023 you started?
Yeah. So I got the job, I think it was in late January 2023. I decided to go with House and House, and that was all done. And then, I got to Dubai on the 3rd of March 2023, and my first day in House and House was on the 6th of March.
And it's all been off plan, so primary market that you've been selling.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my background in Australia, and that was all I was really interested in. So I did the week's worth of training, and then I was put into my off-plan team, which just happened to be managed by the great Stephen Leckie, who's the perfect manager for me. Like from day one, he was just a straight shooter, and I've been in his team ever since.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense to me that you went down that route. Okay, that was your background. But as you said earlier, if you're doing the off-plan, there are millions and millions of properties to sell, aren't there? Or at least hundreds of thousands. Whereas if you're doing the primary market, ready now property, you've got to obtain that property. And you've almost got to sell yourself twice, haven't you? Because you've got to sell yourself to the seller and be the agent that lists it, probably along with other agents as well. And then you've got to find a buyer, whereas the stock is already there with the off-plan.
That was exactly my thought process, because you essentially take the listing side of things out of it.
Yeah.
And I've always just generally been interested in projects myself, like whether it be a master plan community or just a really cool apartment building. I've always been drawn to that rather than the singular dwellings. And now I guess the challenge over here in Dubai is the fact that any agent can sell into any off-plan project. So whilst, yes, the developers have plenty of stock, all the agents have access to it. So
but the cream rises to the top as an agent.
So the stock can be very hard to get. Yeah. But one of the big benefits of House and House is the fact that the relationships are there. Like Simon has, and the company has relationships with, the Emars, the Nikhils, all these types of companies where, we can get access to stock and all that type of thing, pre-launch opportunities. So that part of it definitely helps, no doubt.
And what I'm excited about in this podcast, let's get to the nitty gritty. So you've started in January 2023?
March 2023.
Well, even better now, because so you got 9 or 10 months to see how well you get on. And how well you got on was you were the number 1 off-plan sales agent for House & House for the whole of 2023, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Wow.
I was the top off-plan consultant and the top biller in the entire company as well.
Were you? Well, that makes sense because,
so in that 9 months, I'd sold about 330 million dirhams.
That's phenomenal.
Worth of off-plan
Congratulations.
property. Yeah, thank you. It's, it's a bit of a whirlwind type thing. But I mean, look, that's why you come to Dubai. That's why you sort of, take the risk to get out of your home country, leave your current career for, the potential opportunities that are over here. And, there's, a lot of, luxury properties out there. There's a lot of high net worth individuals that are buying here. So if you can, get your hands on it, it obviously can be life-changing, which it has been to me, no doubt.
So you've obviously built up some great relationships with predominantly Australians, is it, who've invested in Dubai?
Yeah, that's correct. I suppose trying to have a point of difference in a busy marketplace like Dubai where there are so many brokers. And I think just in general, you tend to relate better to you relate to people you can relate to. You know, an English guy is probably going to relate to another English guy better than I can. And that's been the same with Australians. I think the fact that, they've been able to find someone over here that they can trust to, handle their portfolios over here has been a major thing. But I guess even though I was new to Dubai, I'd had about 14 odd years experience, dealing with some high net worth people back in Australia for Australian real estate. And I guess, when the opportunity came to, interact with a few of these high net worth buyers, I was ready. I knew what to do. I was ready to rock. And, that experience had held me in good stead.
So it says a big combination of House & House being a great agency to be with, obviously get on well with Stephen and other staff there, the knowledge of off-plan already from Australia, and then Dubai being a fantastic market, put all that together, and that helped you reach that figure of 330 million, I guess.
Yeah, most definitely.
Just trying to understand how you get there. It's incredible.
Well, I guess if you have some high net worth people that have a lot of money to spend and are very motivated as well, in terms of building a portfolio here or diversifying out of crypto to help build that portfolio, whatever the factors were, for these particular buyers, that obviously helped as well. But you're right, I had an incredible support network. I've got the brand of House & House. I've got not just Stephen Leckie, but I've got Simon Baker. I've got Paul Charland, amongst the other just, senior, agents and brokers in the team. And I would say that it really is done as a collaborative team effort at House & House. So yeah, all of those things combined, were kind of the perfect, kind of the perfect formula to obviously help me succeed and, help those particular people, and, sort of carried on into 2024 as well. And, here we are in the start of 2025. And
you're a real estate guy through and through, aren't you? I mean, investing in your first property when you're 20, building up a portfolio of 6 over a relatively short space of time. So you're excited about it, and that helps a lot. And we were chatting earlier, you also quite like precious metals, and we both agree on that. Cryptocurrency that you were talking about there, and the diversification by some people, which has helped you, isn't an area necessarily that you've been excited about yourself, but you've benefited from it because of the fact that others want to diversify, and some of that diversification has been Dubai real estate, and you've been there to take advantage of it.
That is true. The ironic thing with that is I've never been an investor of crypto, and I still don't necessarily understand crypto. And a lot of my friends back in Australia are invested in it and will always tell me, Dave, you're missing the boat. Crypto's the next big thing you're going to get into. And I would be on the other side saying, silver, gold, precious metals. And yes, now indirectly, because of some of these purchases that they were using crypto to purchase these properties, which has obviously made me some commission, has indirectly made me some money out of cryptocurrency in hindsight. So I suppose, yeah, there's a bit of irony there.
And I think Stephen Leckie and Paul Sharland would say similar things. I got a feeling Paul might be into it a bit, but I don't think Stephen is. But he's benefited as well, from that diversification.
Yeah, well, certainly Paul's very, very big into crypto.
Oh, he's big into it.
Yeah, well,
okay.
look, he's certainly a big advocate for it and that type of thing. And look, one of the reasons why the Dubai real estate market is so hot and active and is the busiest real estate market in the world is because there's so many avenues to purchase, and crypto is a big thing. There's a lot of people
it's a very crypto-friendly place, isn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah. So if you are sitting on quite a lot of crypto and aren't able to utilize it in your current country of residence, I mean, there's no better place than Dubai to, move that into some, property in, the world's busiest and best real estate market. So it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it's a big, big factor over here.
Let's talk about social media because I had a look at your Instagram account, which is very, very good. And so how much of a part has that played in your success?
Yeah, so I guess, having, some big buyers buy a lot of properties and that type of thing is awesome, but it was, not going to go on forever type thing. So I suppose as a broker, you're always looking to build your pipeline and just make sure you've got new buyers to work with and that type of thing. And, we're in the digital age, aren't we? We're in the social media age. I mean, you're kind of missing out if you're not on it and trying to promote yourself and that type of thing. So I'd never had an Instagram before because I thought I would just scroll because I'd see beautiful women, nice cars, all the things that would distract me. But so I started my Instagram in February of last year, literally from scratch, never had one before. And we're up to a solid, I think, 7,500 followers now, which is nice.
Yeah, that's a decent number on Instagram. I think I've got about 42. So I need to work on that. I've got a few more on LinkedIn. So you started February of last year, so 2024.
Yeah.
Now you've built that out really quickly. I mean, what do you think about? So let's say an agent comes out here and they haven't quite got the background or the position that you've got. Do you think that you can spend money and build up a social media, maybe an Instagram account, and do it that way? In other words, invest the money first, get some experience here as well. But you kind of did it the other way around, didn't you? You just said you got some cash first and then invested it in the social media. I'm just wondering for people whether they could do it the other way around as well. Get a social media following, and then sell the real estate after that.
Yeah, you're right. I guess because I'd had a really good run and, was the top seller and I had a bit of a story that I thought was worth promoting. That certainly helped me have confidence in trying and starting the Instagram page. But I think in hindsight, looking at it as well, obviously it's not easy for, new brokers to come over and, not receive a salary and that type of thing. But I think you've got to try all avenues to get business. So you've still got to do your basics, your prospecting with your phone calls, following up people, all those type of things, you still need to do. But yeah, I think social media is such a powerful thing now. And, you can probably find some companies, maybe they're both based overseas to sort of do it and edit it for you and that type of thing. But I think you've at least got to try. And I think the main thing is just trying to provide value. And if you can show a few different scenarios, whether you're a leasing broker about, just the different prices in different areas or, the different price per square foot in certain areas or some of the new off-plan projects. I think if you can show value to someone and they see it and they think, actually, you know what, I didn't know that. That's quite interesting. That actually seems like a good buy or a good place to lease. Yeah, I'll send you a message. You've got to be in it to win it. So yeah. I think, people make the decision to come to Dubai or not. It's a big decision. There's no guarantees. You've got to outlay money. It's kind of the same thing. So I think, look, you've got to be in it to win it. You may as well try.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was one of your really good videos, the one where you compared the price per square meter of Australian real estate or 5 or 6 cities over there with Dubai, just to highlight to the Australians that you might think of Dubai as expensive, but actually it's cheaper than the majority of big cities in Australia. And so you were certainly adding value with that because you were writing it all out, weren't you?
Well, that's right. I think one of my main goals on social media is to try and provide value and not look like a complete
Yeah,
tool.
and you
So
do that.
I don't know if I've always done that, but that is the aim. Try
You
and
come
provide
across
value.
well.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's good. Which brings me on to, if we're looking at Dubai and the price per square meter, why are you bullish over the next few years?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. So I think one is the fact that Dubai is obviously doing what they're doing, and they've got their plan for 2040 and beyond. They have obviously the one government in charge, and they essentially run Dubai just like a business. The Sheikh is essentially the CEO, and they roll out their business plans, which are the plans for the city. And I think even the fact that they have a plan is probably so far beyond a lot of other places around the world. So they want to double the population between now and 2040 from 3.7 million to 7.8 million. So even if they get somewhere close to that figure,
I think they'll do it.
I think they will as well. That's obviously an enormous amount of people to come into the city during that time, which is obviously going to continue pressures on housing supply. But more to that, I think the fact that it's incredibly safe, it's very clean, the weather is great, albeit a little bit too hot during summer, but fair enough.
Great air conditioning.
Great air conditioning. You're in an air-conditioned space more often than not. Obviously no taxes in terms of income tax, capital gains tax. I think all of those things are so appealing to people as we speak right here, right now, which maybe 10, 15 years ago seemed strange because I think a lot of the other parts of the world were in a different place. I think what's happening now is the fact that, once traditionally strong economies or popular places to live are having a lot of issues with the national debt that the government's carrying, which is contributing to inflation. You seem to have further divide in terms of political stance. Rising crime seems to be up, a high cost of living with high interest rates and high property prices. I think all of these things people are looking at, and now maybe in the age of social media as well, more people have access to information. They can see that,
That's a very good point.
There is an alternative. I don't necessarily have to stay in Australia or stay in the UK, or I could potentially move to this place and just have a much better quality of life and potentially be better financially, or don't necessarily need to move there. But hey, you know what? Instead of buying a property in Australia where I'm going to get a 2.5% yield and the market's not doing well, that same money could perform much better in a place like Dubai. So I think it's twofold. I think people are very in favor and trusting of what Dubai is doing because they've proven it over the last 20 years. And, anyone that comes here can see that on the ground. So I think people believe in what Dubai is doing. And then on the flip side, unfortunately, I think a lot of countries around the world are going to keep having issues. And I think that'll keep driving it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this place that is almost like the Switzerland of the Middle East, isn't it? It does remain neutral and does seem to be the place to go. Didn't realise you could get yields as low as 2.5% in parts of Australia.
Yeah. Well, I did a comparison recently on sort of like a typical house and land package for 650,000 Australian, in sort of the western corridor of Melbourne. And by the time you, factor in the property management costs, the insurance costs, the council rates, because all of that's increased quite a lot in the last few years. And look, rents have increased as well, don't get me wrong, but, the yield on that scenario is quite low compared to that 650,000 Australian being about 1.5 million dirhams. Previously could have got your one bedroom in, the Rove Marasi project in Business Bay, and on short-term rental, yielding about 8.5 to 9%. So, and you're in Business Bay, right in the CBD of Dubai, the busiest real estate market in the world. I mean,
there's no comparison.
There's a big difference there. So I guess part of the Instagram stuff is to, show more Australians that, that same money could potentially be better spent over here.
And I would imagine Australia probably isn't as bad as the UK, but the rules and regulations that are coming in for landlords, it's just unbelievable. Here, it's so much easier to just get on with it and you're not being bothered as a landlord by the legislation, anything like the same.
It's following suit though. Like the Western countries seem to all follow each other. They seem to all trend in the same direction. And, it's certainly happening in Australia as well. And I guess part of what I say to fellow Australians is, all right, the things are in place now, which aren't that great. But by diversifying over into Dubai, for example, you're also safeguarding yourself against further restrictions. Maybe they bring in rent controls. Maybe there's further
taxes. Do they not have that anywhere in Australia?
In certain parts of Australia, they do.
Yeah.
I think not that long ago there was some sort of a cap on Airbnbs as well in Victoria. Like there could only be a certain amount. Because that was the government's bright idea to free up housing, to penalise the people that are renting out their properties on short-term rental.
Yeah, that'll work.
But I think it's the fear that potentially things will get worse and more restrictive, and it only seems to be penalising the investor or the landlord, really. So, where would you put your money? Do you feel confident about putting it in your country of residence, or is there a better opportunity elsewhere?
Yeah, if you look at it, sort of people that just want to keep it in cash have been penalised heavily because of low interest rates and banks not even paying the base rate, the standard rate. And then people look for property, and that's now being hammered, certainly in Western countries. So then you look at Dubai property, or you and I like precious metals, and then crypto's another thing I like. So you've got to look for alternatives. Before I let you go, what areas of Dubai do you like at the moment for the off-plan? I know it depends on budgets and it depends on sort of attitude towards investment, but can you talk in general terms about what you like at the moment?
Yeah, well, something that I really like at the moment is the Maritime City, Mina Rashid, Dubai Islands area. I sort of combine them all into one. I think that is going to be an absolutely fantastic, brand new waterfront precinct that'll be almost like a modern version of sort of the Palm Jumeirah, Blue Waters, that type of thing. So Maritime City is a rejuvenation project. That is sort of the old dry docks there. And, 90% of the plots there have been purchased by Omniat or Beyond, which is a subsidiary of Omniat. So they've got this amazing master plan called Jumeirah Peninsula that they're going to be doing along there. Just next to that, you have Mina Rashid, which is an EMAR development. And look, anything EMAR does pretty much turns to gold. And if they're doing something in an area, that's a pretty good sign. And then just a bit further to that, you have Dubai Islands, which is 5 man-made islands connected to the mainland. Nikhil was the master developer, and that's got plans for 2 golf courses, 86 hotels and resorts, 21 kilometres of beach, 9 marinas. And if you look at the price per square foot on what's currently for sale there, it's averaging between sort of 2,500 to 3,000 dirhams price per square foot. Obviously, because it's very early in terms of the infrastructure. But if you compare that to established, previous waterfront island communities like the Palm Jumeirah, like Blue Waters, like Jumeirah Bay, their price per square foot is anywhere from 5,500 up to 12,500 dirhams. So I think anyone that gets into those areas now, as the infrastructure develops, the hotels and resorts go in, the master plans come along. There's a big shopping mall for both Maritime City and Dubai Islands go in. I think as that infrastructure comes in over the next few years, I think you're going to see that price per square foot increase and get up to the same levels as, the Palm and the other established parts. So that's a big one for me.
That makes perfect sense to me. And you're right about EMAR and the communities that they create, because you look at communities like Arabian Ranches or EMAR 6 Towers or Springs,
Dubai Hills.
Dubai Hills. And, they're 20 years old, a lot of these developments, and they're still great. I walked around the EMAR 6 Towers the other day, and it looks like it did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's, any other areas at all?
Look, I think Expo City. So obviously I like
Expo.
Yeah, as the population of Dubai expands, it is heading towards the south, and the south is being talked about a lot because of the expansion to Al Maktoum Airport, which will be the world's largest airport by 2050. So just nearby to that is the Expo City development, which was built for the World Expo a few years ago now. And this is how forward-thinking and smart the government are. They spent, trying to think now, it was I'm trying to think. It was 100 and something. Sorry, it was 25 billion dirhams to build all of the infrastructure for Expo, all the pavilions, extend the not the subway, what do you call it? I've gone blank.
A metro.
The metro. Sorry, to get the metro out there. All that infrastructure was spent for the Expo, which was a massive success. Now the Expo is being repurposed as the city of Dubai South, and not just inner city, the most sustainable city in the entire UAE. So I think that is incredibly exciting because the airport is going to generate, I think,
40,000 jobs?
40,000 jobs, and I think 1 million new residents are going to come into Dubai South. And, Expo is going to be at the forefront of that. It's going to have the largest exhibition center in the Middle East. And when it's fully up and running, there'll be 600 events per year happening there. So I think it's an incredible opportunity for someone to purchase there now. It's all being run by the government. The government's doing the residential buildings there now, along with EMA, I should say. I mean, imagine having a property that you can rent out on short-term rental with 600 events happening there. Imagine what someone would pay to go on a Taylor Swift concert when it happens there on that particular weekend. So I think, as a company, as House & House, we've sold a lot in Expo. We're incredibly bullish.
Stephen and Paul like that.
Well, the entire company does, to be honest,
And it's already great. It's okay. There isn't much in terms of residential at the moment, but that's coming. So off-plan guys like you will be selling that. But what's already there from the expo, from the exhibition, it is fantastic. And let's be honest, if we're talking about something that is slightly negative in connection with Dubai, it's the traffic, isn't it? But there you're going to have a city that's, you're still going to use your car from time to time, but you might only need it once or twice a week. And the parking's underground, isn't it? So it's just going to be fantastic. And I can see a lot of potential for that.
Well, it's an incredibly unique situation in terms of, if you go to pretty much any other master plan community, they start pre-selling it and then people buy in and then they build the homes and then, the shopping malls and the infrastructure come after. In this case, it's the opposite. The infrastructure's there and the residential's coming in after. So, incredibly unique opportunity.
Anything else you wanted to cover?
Look, I guess in terms of great options for people, we know that there's a shortage of villas and townhouses. So in the last 12 months, for example, only about 2% of all off-plan transactions have been villas and only about 10 or 11% have been townhouses. That is incredible, 2%. Yeah, and that's not because people don't want villas and townhouses. That's just because there's a shortage. So anyone that we speak to that's an investor that obviously has the budget for it, because they are a bit higher priced, we think any quality townhouse or villa community coming up is a no-brainer because there will just be a consistent shortage of quality, like actual housing townhouses.
Because you're going to have families coming out here, so they're going to favour that. And then you're going to have people that are already here that want to start a family, so they're going to be looking towards that. So 100% agree with you. We've covered quite a lot there. I've got a better idea now of why you've been so successful. You've offered great advice today. How do people get hold of you? What's the best way?
Yes. So I guess, once again, my name is David Hutchinson. My Instagram is at imdhutch. And then, obviously my details are on the House & House website as well. Through my Instagram, you can get a hold of me through WhatsApp there as well. And feel free to send me a message and happy to have a chat.
Yeah, definitely recommend for people out there that are thinking of investing, they speak to you because you, as I say, you clearly know your stuff and very good. Thanks very much for coming on the podcast today. I've really enjoyed it. Appreciate it, David.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.